Okay, well, hello again. In this second video on unemployment benefits for adjuncts in Washington, we're going to walk through the process of submitting the initial application. It's pretty straightforward, honestly. Really anyone can figure it out on their own. But there are a couple things that are maybe not exactly clear the first time you do it, and so I think it's worth walking through some of the steps in a little bit more detail and providing some clarity on some of those points. So that's what we're going to do in this one. So just the information that you need, it's pretty straightforward. No real surprises there, but your social security number. If you don't provide it, you legally will not get benefits, so have that handy. Name and address of your very last employer. In this case, it's probably Green River. The date you last worked, so that would be the last day of the previous academic quarter. The names and addresses of all your employers during the last 2 years. So this is where it starts to get a little tricky, because some adjuncts make this mistake, and I want to make sure that you don't do it, because this is really important. Okay, you have to list all of your employers for the last 2 years. Now, if you just consistently work for Green River, it's not that hard, but it is a lot of data entry. But if you've worked for more than one college over the last 2 years, or you had some other part-time job or something like that, you got to list them all. There's room to list up to 16 employers on the online application, but if you've had more than 16 in the last 2 years, you have to call the claims center and do it over the phone, and it's kind of annoying. You might be thinking, I definitely didn't have more than 16 employers, but actually, for an adjunct, that's actually conceivable, because you should be listing every single contract as a separate employer. So over the last 2 years, you may have worked at Green River for 4 academic quarters each year. That's 8 different employers. I realize that it's really only one employer, but you were given 8 different discrete employment contracts that had a clear start date and a clear end date, and you need to indicate each of those as a separate employment time period with Green River. Because remember, as adjuncts, we are only employed during times of instruction. We do not have yearly contracts. So we are given a contract, it ends, and then we are rehired when the new contract starts. You really want to. It's a pain, believe me. It seems like a lot of unnecessary data entry, but it's very, very important for something that comes after you've submitted your application. So please do this. Every quarter is a different contract and therefore a different employer. Even if it's all the same company, or in this case organization, Green River College that you worked for, it's a different one on the application, okay? And then the dates that you worked for all your employers, again, if you're just an adjunct, even if you're teaching at more than one school, those dates are just those, start and end dates of the quarter. That's when your contract starts, that's when it ends, okay? But you have to report this, because employers don't report that. They only report the wages and the hours. And in fact, depending on the school, they might not be reporting the hours properly, because remember, as we talked about in the last video, they may only report contact hours, but your contact hours are less than the regular work hours that ESD is taking into account. So that's why you want to calculate that stuff ahead of time, because it'll show you'll see some information as you're going through the application. You want to make sure it's correct. Otherwise, you then may need to call the claims center and actually talk to someone to get it corrected. But you definitely want to enter all that information as separate. Each contract is a separate entry in the employers that you've worked for. Okay. So the first time you log on, you can apply. You can start your application or even finish your application on the first day you are officially out of contract. So, again, recording this in March of 2020, the first day that Adjuncts will be out of contract from Green River will be Saturday, March 21st, because the quarter ends on the 20th, right? So you can sit down on that Saturday and do your application then. As long as you do it sometime in the next week, in that first week that you're unemployed, it's okay. You don't have to do it right on that Saturday, but I typically do it on the Sunday after, because ESD weeks run Sunday to Saturday. So for me, I will do mine March 22nd, but you could do it on Saturday if you really want to. So that's the ESD website there. I'll just pull it up here real quick just so you can see what it looks like. It's really just a state website. Nothing too fancy about it, really. But you'll use the same username and password that you created at the Secure Access Washington site. So keep that in mind. You can see if you forgot to do that, it's going to say, oh, you need that. And if you don't have it, you can click here and you can go straight to it. So it's really not a big deal. But the first time you log on from a computer or a new device, it'll ask you to verify your identity through a second step. So either a phone number or an email account that you provided when you set up your SAW account. So you can either get a text message with a security code, or they can call you and give you a security code. When you enter that in, click the finish button you'll get a confirmation, and you just click finish, and then you'll go into the actual what it looks like in the screen, and then you click on the link in there that says apply for unemployment benefits or manage your current and past claims. So it's kind of a catch-all, and then on the next screen from that, it'll be apply for unemployment. That'll be the next thing that you hit. And then, again, like I said, it's pretty straightforward. It'll walk you through most of it. The main thing, again, we already touched on this, but again, I just want to reiterate this. When you get to the employer section, enter all of the quarters as separate entries, okay? GRC has not been a continuous employer for you over the last 2 years, even if you've taught every quarter, because there have been specific times where you were not an employee. You were not being paid. You were not doing work for which you were being paid. So list them all as separate. I know I'm repeating this a lot, but it's really, really important, okay? We'll come back to this in the next video, but please do it that way, okay? Then the next bit is when you're talking about your employers, there's going to be a part of the application that asks you about your employers, and you want to answer some questions very specifically. And again, this is very, very important, okay? So for instance, the following questions. What date did you start working for your employer? That's the first day of the quarter. So like in fall of 2019, it was September 23rd. In winter of 2020, it was January 2nd, right? So whatever the first day of instruction was, okay? What date did you last physically work for this employer? So again, in the fall of 2019, it was December 12th. For winter quarter 2020, it will be March 20th, okay? Even if you're like, well, I didn't have a final that day or whatever, that's the last day of your contract, okay? Now, when it says, why did you separate from this employer? Select laid off. That's the one you want to select. Now, I know you might be thinking, but I wasn't laid off. Right, you weren't. But if you don't select laid off, you won't get the next one, which is really important, which is school year ended or school is on break. So you have to select laid off, and then it'll say additional information, school year ended or school is on break. You have to say that, because that's what happened, okay? Now, it's gonna, when you answer these two questions this way, it's going to the system's going to automatically ask you for more information once you're done with this application. We'll deal with that in the next video, okay? But you definitely want to answer these questions this way. you were laid off. That's why you were separated from your employer. And it's because the school year ended or is on break. Okay. And then later on, you'll upload some documents that, and they're available in the Canvas shell where these videos are. You'll upload some documents that will help validate your eligibility to receive benefits. Okay, so but make sure you answer those questions in that way. All right, this is what the screen looks like. Okay, so you can see this is a screen grab from when I filed in the summer, in summer 2019. So you can see Grinnell Community College, this was the date of the summer quarter start, this was the day of the summer quarter end, I was laid off, I picked school year ended, school's on break. Was your separation the same day as the last day you worked? Yes. Have you applied or receiving retirement pay? No. It does ask you to put in your gross income during this time period. So, you know, you can kind of do it however you want. I usually just go either on month or year. It's not that many. When you say how many hours a week did you work on average, you want to do the calculation for the regular work hours here. So that's, you know, if you had 10 hours of class time, or contact time, you use that 2/3 of a full-time load, multiply that by 35. That's how many hours on average you worked, right? Okay. Are you on a scheduled break from your school employer? Yes. When did the break start? The last day or the first day where you weren't work. When did your break end? Now, it's going to ask you, you know, when does your break end? Okay. And this is right when the break ends. But you might be thinking, well, does that mean I have? Does that mean they're not going to give it to me because it's coming back? No. You as an adjunct, you are eligible for unemployment, and you should get it every time you are not employed, every time you're out of contract. So again, these questions will auto-generate another step that you have to do once your initial application's over. And again, we'll cover that in the next video, okay? But this is how you want to do this, okay? So then, the wage summary, it's how much you've made during each calendar year quarter. Again, not the academic quarter. So if you haven't been holding on to your adjunct contracts, this can get a little tough. You kind of got to maybe go back and calculate these things out. But if you still have them, then it becomes pretty easy because you can see what your pay is on all the specific pay dates. And remember that the quarterly earnings here are the regular calendar quarter, not the academic calendars, right? So in quarter one of any year, it's just what you earned in January, February, and March, right? Even though our winter quarter, we might get paid in April for that winter quarter work that we did at the end of March, that wouldn't go into that first quarter, right? So just keep that in mind. And then also, right, you want to, as much as you can, verify that what they're showing is your quarterly earnings, because again, that's reported to them by the school, are correct, right? That it's how much you earned is really in there, because if it's underreported, you're going to get less than you should, okay? And then also, again, right, remember that quarterly hours listed on this screen are not the contact hours, that they're the regular work hours. So that's why you want to calculate that beforehand so that you have that information available to you, right? And then, your occupation, it's kind of a search. It's kind of a search thing in there. There's one that's for college administrator, instructor, or it's like college administrator, faculty, or researcher. That's the one you want. When you get to the getting paid screen, I highly suggest doing direct deposit. It actually is pretty good. When you put in your weekly claim, you typically get the direct deposit within 2 days, so it's not too bad. And then you'll see the claim summary screen as the last screen, just to make sure everything's correct, and you submit your application. Okay, so again, just a few things to keep in mind. It's it seems a little, some people get a little freaked out because they think because you're saying you're on a school break, they're not going to give you unemployment. But really all it does is it's going to auto-generate basically a request for more information from you. And that's what we'll deal with in the next video. So, again, pretty straightforward. Just make sure when you're talking about, why you were separated and when you're reporting all your employers that you just follow what I've outlined here, and you'll be good to go. All right, so I'll see you in the next one.